up, guys? So you got a sweet bike and you want to learn how to throw some nasty floaters? Well, you came to the right place. We're going to be talking about how I personally learned how to wheelie a motorcycle, and I know there's a lot of videos out like this, so I'm just going to point out the things that I really found that helped me progress in my wheelies that a lot of videos don't talk about, really. Now, yeah, you're gonna have to get up near balance point, and you're gonna have to get comfortable with the front wheel coming off the ground and rotating back, but I'm gonna go over a lot of stuff here. So this is gonna be probably a two-part video, because I'm gonna get really in depth with how I learned and what things really helped me progress in my wheelies. That I was watching videos just like you guys on YouTube trying to figure out how to get better at wheelies, and a lot of them didn't talk about some of these things. So part one is going to be getting comfortable with the front coming up, getting to where you rotate with the bike. This is going to be mainly power wheelies, unless your bike can't power wheelie, then in that case you're going to have to learn by clutch ups. Part two is going to be getting comfortable with balance point, catching the wheelie and carrying the wheelie, because there's a big difference between being able to just pop the front wheel up and then pop it up high enough to catch it to actually carry the wheelie. So first things first, do this at your own risk, guys. You could loop the bike, you could crash the bike. I don't know why that keeps coming on. A lot of bad things could potentially happen, so just know the risks going in. Now, the very first thing before you even start wheeling is you need to address what kind of bike you have, because that's going to play a big role in this. A lot of people don't talk about this, but some bikes are way easier to wheelie than other bikes. Like, I learned on an FZ09, or now they're MT09s. I'm on an MT10. So when I first started learning, I was on an FZ09 and I was doing first gear. Let's go this way. I was doing first gear to get the front wheel up, to get comfortable with it, which is what you should do. Like on this bike right here, you just need to loft it up a little bit like that. You know, all you're trying to do is get comfortable with that feeling of the bike coming up. And that's what I was doing on the MT09. But the MT09 is much more aggressive than this bike in the way it makes power in first gear. So that bike was super touchy on coming up and going down, where this bike is much smoother. It's easier in first gear to come up. So you need to know what kind of bike you have. If you've got something with a lot of power, I would not suggest learning in first gear. If it will power wheelie in second gear, I would suggest starting in second and power wheeling in second gear, because it's going to be so much easier to control the power. It's not going to be quite as touchy. This doesn't look like a Rota should be doing wheelies on, so I think I'm going to flip around. But regardless, you need to be in the highest gear possible that will power wheelie. Now, if you're on a Grom or something like that, you're out of luck here. You're going to have to pretty much learn with clutch ups, which I will get into more on the second video. This first video is going to be getting comfortable with the wheel coming up. All right, so now that you've established what kind of bike you have and where it makes power, you're going to start just gradually raising the front, because when you're getting used to this, it's going to feel like you're way up in the air and you're only going to be like 6 inches off the ground. So you need to get comfortable with the feeling of the bike coming up and going back down. I knew that sneeze was coming. Now all you're doing is gradually powering up. Now I'm in first gear, but you need to be in the highest gear. Now earlier I was doing little blips. I got a little bit higher that time and I got closer to balance point. So you don't want to get that high yet. You want to get comfortable with the front end coming up. But notice how as I let off the throttle, it kind of stayed up like that and gradually fell back down. That's going to be one of the things. Once you start getting higher and higher, you're going to notice that you're getting to a point to where the front starts feeling lighter, and even if you let off the throttle, it kind of floats for a second and then goes back down. That's going to be key in video number 2 when you're wanting to catch the wheelie and go. When you're getting the front off the ground, just gradually go up. Don't go meat fisting it. You don't want to give it a ton of throttle. As you get these things up higher and higher, you're also going to want to be flirting with that back brake, keeping that covered at all times. Obviously, that is your only fail-safe. If you go and you go past balance point, the back brake's the only thing that's going to pull you back forward. So keep that covered just in case. Another thing that people don't tell you is you need to rotate with the bike. When this comes up, you're going to have the instinct to go like this. Like the bike's going to come to you and you're going to stay in the same spot and kind of crunch down at the bike. You don't want to do that. You want to keep the same arm length that you are from the bike now and rotate back with the bike so that when it comes up, you go backwards a little bit. This is going to be one of the scariest things to learn, but it's also going to be one of the most important things to learn, because if you go forward or you stay where you are and just let the bike come to you, you're not rotating your mass back, which makes it harder to get to balance point or close to balance point. So the bike's just going to want to fall right back down as soon as you get it up. So you need to, A, power up. So here's second gear. Power up and rotate back. See how it just comes up a little bit? Just keep doing that. Just little by little, keep doing that, and eventually you'll get up there closer to balance point. Now, I chase my wheelies, so there's a couple ways you can do this. I like doing fast wheelies, which is not the safest way to do them. It's just the way I've always done them. Think of, well, here, I'm going to pull over and give you guys a little hand diagram. You know what I mean? To show you guys, I'm going to paint a picture for you. The stop sign looks good. So say this is flat ground right here, and this is the bike. So say that's 12 o'clock. Say right there is balance point. I do my wheelies just right below balance point, because when you're right below balance point like that, the front end is light, and you just keep giving it blips of throttle to keep the front end up. So all you're doing is a little blips like that, and it's keeping the front end up because you're just below balance point. So there's less risk of looping the bike like that, but to keep the bike up, you're giving it more throttle, and you're going faster because of that. Now, obviously, the other end of it is being in balance point or just after balance point, but you're going to have to be really comfortable with the rear brake if you're doing that, because obviously it can flip over if you go past balance point. So you want to be flirting with the front end of balance point here. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, how will I know where balance point is? And trust me, it's something that you're going to feel. You don't want to get there too fast. You want to get comfortable with the bike coming up, you know, maybe a foot, maybe a foot and a half, something like that, and then get really comfortable with that. Do that a lot. Do it like I'm dead serious a couple hundred times, and then start gradually going higher. Then go up to, you know, 2 feet, 3 feet, because as you get higher, there's going to be one time that you scare the crap out of yourself. I guarantee it. It's going to happen. It happens to everybody. You're going to get up too hard, and you're going to think you're going to flip because you're not used to getting up near balance point. You're not used to having the foot or the front tire 3-4 feet off the ground, and you're going to be like, oh my God, I don't know how it didn't flip. But in reality, it's just you weren't getting up that high in the beginning. So yeah. Now, I personally think clutch ups are easier to do than power wheelies depending on the bike. But like I was talking about earlier, some bikes make power different than others. So that's another thing that you're going to have to work on. Notice how when I go up, I tilt the bars. That's me trying to keep it at a certain point in the road. But another thing to keep note of, even when you're just starting to learn this stuff, is if you have the bars cocked like this or this, when you come down, you want to bring your front wheel back straight. So as it comes back down, you have to recenter those bars. This is another scary thing that can happen. It's happened to me, and if you don't have a good steering stabilizer, it could happen to you. If you come down and that wheel is left or right just a little bit, it could throw you into a tank slapper. Now, Usually at low speeds it's not that bad, but I got thrown into a tank slapper at the top of third, setting it down on my R1. Needless to say, the underwear I was wearing went in the trash when I got home. There was quite a surprise in that pair of underwear. The big thing is rotate with the bike. That was the biggest thing that helped me, because I was doing wheelies for like a couple months straight, and I was confident getting it off of the ground. Like, getting the bike actually up in the air was not a problem for me. The problem was I kept going towards the bike, or staying at the same spot and letting the bike come to me, so I would do this thing, you know? And it's like you're almost pushing the bike back down, because to be honest, it's freaking scary when you're first learning to rotate with the bike, but you're gonna have to do that. Something I'm gonna talk about that you guys are gonna start flirting with a little bit, that it could bite you in the backside, is hill crest wheelies. So when you're coming to the crest of a hill, like say this one, let's go to second. This hill crest right here, it makes it really easy to do that. So it makes it easier to power up, but there's a big but on this. If you go over this hill crest, when you go down the back side of it, it's gonna throw your front end higher, because your bike's gonna be at the same position, but the angle of the grade has changed, so it's gonna feel like it just shot you back another freaking 10 or 15 degrees. Be careful with that stuff. You know, get comfortable with wheelies before you start really flirting with hill crests. I would go to a parking lot or a big empty road or something like that to practice this stuff, or just ride around in the country like I do. But I don't have anything close to my house that I could just come out and practice wheelies at. But like I said, try to cover that rear brake, because if anything does happen, it's going to happen fast, and the rear brake is going to be your only savior. If you grab the front brake, you're toast. You're flipping over. Odds are you won't need to, because for the first couple months, you're probably going to think that you're getting massive air under that front tire, and you're not. You're coming up like an inch or a foot, maybe 2 feet, and you're going to think you're throwing some lofters, but you ain't. But don't worry, you'll get there. It takes time. I learned how to wheelie almost 3 years ago, so you know, it takes a little bit of time to get there. So guys, that is my basics of starting to wheelie. Video 2 is going to be coming out probably a week after video 1, and I'm going to talk about clutching the bike up, getting a feeling for getting close to balance point, keeping the front, because there's a big difference between just lofting the front, and even if you get the balance point, to being able to catch it and ride it out. There's a huge difference there. So I'm going to talk about all that in video number 2. This is just for your beginner's guide to getting the front wheel up and getting comfortable with getting the front wheel up. In no time, you're going to be throwing up lofters like that. It's going to be second nature, boys. I promise you, your wheelies will get better. It just takes time. It takes practice. Don't go too fast on getting too high, because that's when you ultimately wreck the crap out of your bike. Just take it easy, get a feel for it, keep popping the front up, and then we'll talk about clutch ups in the next video. So as always, guys, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the video. Leave a like on the video. Until next time, boys.